Most men think silence means disinterest. They see a woman pull away, post something vague, act cold, and they assume it's over. But what if I told you that women rarely communicate desire directly? They send signals, quiet, subtle, psychological triggers designed to test whether you still feel her energy even when she's not speaking. The truth is, women don't chase. They invite. They don't confess what they want, they suggest it through energy, timing, and behavior. And the reason most men miss it is because they're too focused on words instead of patterns. Here's the paradox. When she starts missing you, she won't say it. Instead, she'll start acting in ways that make you feel her presence again. She'll suddenly view your story after weeks of silence. She'll post something that mirrors your energy, maybe a quote about detachment, healing, or learning to let go. It's not coincidence, it's communication. Women use indirect language because it keeps their pride intact, while revealing just enough for the emotionally intelligent man to notice. But here's the key. She's not just testing your attention, she's testing your frame. She wants to know if you're still grounded, still masculine, still centered in your peace. If you rush in the moment she drops a breadcrumb, she knows she still controls your emotions. But if you recognize the signal, pause, and respond from strength instead of need, that's when she feels your power again. See, a woman's attraction doesn't fade overnight. It transforms based on how you handle her distance. When she pulls away, she's subconsciously watching your reaction. Do you chase? Do you beg? Do you go silent but secretly hope she returns? Or do you remain unmoved, calm, detached, certain of your value? That's when she realizes she's the one who's losing control. There's an entire language hidden beneath her silence, a pattern of actions, reactions, and online cues that reveal more than any "I miss you" ever could. But only the man who's emotionally disciplined can read it correctly. The weak man interprets every silence as rejection. The strong man sees silence as a message and decides whether it deserves a reply. So, in this video, we'll break down the secret signals women send when they secretly want you to reach out. The ones most men overlook because they're still operating on emotion, not awareness. Once you understand them, you'll never be confused again. You'll know when she's testing, when she's missing you, and when she's trying to pull you back without saying a single word. Because attraction isn't about words, it's about energy. And the man who learns to read energy never chases. He chooses. Before we start, remember, if you're ready to master yourself and the dating game, my full course is waiting at the stoiccouple.podia.com site. Join once and you're in for life, with lifetime access to every future lessons, series, and books. Start your journey now because growth doesn't wait. Section number 1. Why women communicate desire indirectly. A woman's desire rarely speaks in words. It speaks in subtle shifts. The truth is, women are trained by both instinct and experience to protect their vulnerability. Direct pursuit risks rejection, and rejection bruises her ego far deeper than most men realize. So instead of saying, "I miss you," she'll post something that makes you think she's moved on, while secretly hoping you notice the pattern behind it. She wants connection without exposure, validation without surrender. That's why she communicates in paradoxes. She pulls away but watches you closely. She ignores your messages but lingers on your social media. She acts cold in person yet glows when you look at her. It's not manipulation, it's emotional protection. She wants to feel desired without appearing desperate. Women are emotional strategists. Their communication is layered. Words on the surface, emotion underneath, and intention buried deep beneath that. What confuses most men is that they respond to the surface, the cold words, the silence, the attitude, without realizing that her tone tells a different story. You'll notice it in the timing. She reappears online just when you stop chasing. She brings up a random memory when she feels your energy detaching. She might even ask mutual friends how you're doing, pretending not to care, but needing reassurance that she still lives in your mind. Every action is calculated to feel out your emotional temperature. But here's the secret. She doesn't want a man who reacts. She wants a man who reads. A man who can sense the emotional current beneath her behavior without letting it disturb his peace. The man who can recognize her signals but doesn't rush to them. That restraint triggers something powerful in her. Curiosity. Because women respect men who can sense their intentions, yet remain unmoved until it's truly time to act. A woman communicates desire indirectly because it keeps the dynamic alive, the tension between revelation and mystery. If she gives herself too easily, attraction loses its polarity. But if she hides everything, connection dies. So she dances in between, saying just enough to keep your attention while leaving gaps that only a calm, perceptive man can fill. This is why emotional discipline is the ultimate masculine skill. When you understand her indirect nature, you stop overreacting. You stop begging for clarity. You let her silence reveal more than her words ever could. And that's when she feels it. Your emotional stability, your detachment, your depth. Because deep down, every woman wants to be understood without having to explain herself. And only the man who listens with presence, not panic, will ever hear the message hidden between her silences. Section number 2. The first signal. When she creates emotional tension on purpose. The first and most misunderstood signal a woman sends when she wants you to reach out is emotional tension. She'll create distance, silence, or even mild conflict, not to push you away, but to feel whether your connection still holds power. It's a test cloaked as detachment. She might suddenly stop replying as quickly as before, or withdraw after an intense moment together. Most men panic here. They start overextending, over-explaining, or overthinking, trying to fix what feels off. But what she's doing isn't rejection, it's calibration. She wants to see if your calm is situational or authentic. Understand this. Emotional tension is her way of measuring your strength. She doesn't want a man who collapses at the first sign of discomfort. She wants a man who can remain still when everything in her tries to provoke reaction. Because when you stay calm, grounded, and unmoved, it signals something primal, safety. She can sense that your emotions don't control you, which means hers won't scare you either. This is why many women pull back after connection. The emotional closeness awakens vulnerability inside them, and vulnerability makes them anxious. So they retreat to see if you'll chase. It's not malicious, it's instinct. They want reassurance, but not through words, through energy. Your silence, your poise, your patience, those become your answers. Most men fail here because they mistake her withdrawal for disinterest. They respond with desperation instead of discipline. And the moment you chase, she loses respect. Not because you cared, but because you collapsed. You let her energy dictate your behavior, and once she sees that, she knows she can control your emotional state whenever she wants. But the Stoic man reads it differently. He recognizes tension as communication. He lets it breathe. He knows attraction needs space to expand. So instead of reacting, he retreats inward, not out of spite, but out of strength. His silence forces her to confront her own emotions. His absence becomes the mirror she didn't expect to face. That's when the shift happens. She begins to question her own detachment. Why hasn't he reached out? Did he move on? Did I push too far? That uncertainty reignites her desire, because emotional tension that once belonged to you now lives inside her. The feminine always seeks polarity. When you refuse to overreact, you become the stable center she orbits around. Again, she doesn't need to say she misses you. Her energy starts to show it. Her posts soften. Her tone changes. Her curiosity returns. Emotional tension isn't a threat. It's an invitation. One most men misread as danger, but the man who can feel it, hold it, and stay unmoved, he's the man she can't forget. Section number 3. The second signal. The subtle ways she reconnects through social energy. When a woman begins to miss you but can't say it out loud, her energy starts to leak through the cracks of her pride. She won't text you directly. Not yet. Instead, she'll reappear through social energy, little moves calculated with precision that test whether your attention still belongs to her. She'll watch your stories again, like an old photo, comment on something unrelated, or suddenly post something that feels strangely familiar. A quote you once shared, a song you introduced her to, a picture that mirrors your old moments. And if you think that's coincidence, you're not paying attention. Women use the digital world as their emotional radar. Every like, every view, every delayed reply, it's a language. She's not asking for a conversation. She's checking for connection. She wants to know, does my presence still affect him? And your reaction, or lack of one, will tell her everything. Most men fail this test because they read these small cues as green lights and rush in. They slide into her DMs with excitement, thinking the door is open again. But the truth is, she doesn't want you to chase. She wants to feel that you notice. She wants to sense that she still lives rent-free in your awareness without you losing control over it. It's a balance between acknowledgement and indifference. If you ignore her completely, she'll assume you've detached for good, and her ego will armor her up again. But if you react emotionally, she'll feel her power restored, and the dynamic resets to imbalance. The right move? Subtle recognition without submission. Maybe you reply to a story with something light, confident, emotionless. Or maybe you don't respond at all, but keep your presence steady and calm. Either way, your tone matters more than your timing. She must feel that you see her, but that she no longer controls your peace. That paradox creates intrigue, and intrigue is the root of renewed attraction. What most men forget is that women crave emotional polarity. They're drawn to the man who can sense their emotional signals, yet refuses to be enslaved by them. The man who can see through her games, feel her testing energy, and still stay centered in calm certainty. That's the man who haunts her thoughts. So when she starts orbiting your world again, liking, posting, lurking, understand what's really happening. She's not just revisiting memories, she's reestablishing energetic contact. She's whispering through digital silence. Are you still there? And the most powerful answer you can ever give is not through words, but through your energy. Yes, but only if you've grown, because real connection doesn't start with a text. It starts with tension, and the man mature enough to handle it without breaking it. Section number 4, the third signal. When her behavior turns contradictory. When a woman starts showing two opposite sides, warmth one day, distance the next, it's not confusion, it's communication through contradiction. Because when her heart wants you, but her pride resists you, her actions become inconsistent. And if you don't understand female psychology, you'll mistake that conflict for rejection, when in truth, it's desire disguised as denial. She might text you out of nowhere, then go silent again. She might flirt subtly, then pretend she didn't mean it. She might look at you with that familiar softness, only to act cold minutes later. What's happening isn't emotional chaos. It's her internal battle between vulnerability and self-protection. She wants to reconnect, but she fears being rejected. So she pushes, pulls, and hides behind mixed signals, hoping you'll read between the lines. Most men react emotionally to this. They either chase too fast, trying to fix the inconsistency, or they withdraw completely, angry that she's playing games. But this isn't about games, it's about control. Women often test emotional balance through contradiction. They want to see if your composure depends on their warmth or if your stability stands on its own. That's why your reaction matters more than her behavior. When you stay calm through her fluctuations, she feels something rare: safety. She realizes your peace isn't negotiable. You don't reward inconsistency with attention, and you don't punish it with anger. You simply observe, respond selectively, and remain grounded. That balance shifts the power dynamic instantly. When a man reacts emotionally, she knows she still has leverage. When a man responds rationally, she starts questioning herself. And when a man remains still, detached, confident, patient, she begins to feel the very thing she was trying to avoid: missing you. Contradictory behavior is how the feminine tries to confirm connection without losing pride. Every push is a pull in disguise. Every act of distance hides the hope that you'll still see through it. But the truth is, the only men who see through her are the ones who don't chase what's unclear. They let her energy clarify itself through absence. So when she's hot and cold, don't label her unpredictable. Label her uncertain. She's wrestling with her own emotions, trying to decide if your silence means indifference or strength. The more still you are, the more clarity she gains, because chaos can't manipulate calm. That's the paradox of attraction. When you stop trying to understand her, she starts trying to understand you. And that's when the scales flip. Because the moment she realizes your peace doesn't need her attention, her contradictions dissolve, and her true feelings finally surface. That's not manipulation. That's masculine mastery. Responding to emotion with stillness until truth reveals itself. Section number 5. The hidden psychology. Why she sends these signals. Instead of speaking directly to understand women deeply, you must first understand fear. Not the kind that makes her run from danger, but the kind that whispers, "What if he doesn't feel the same?" Or, "What if I open up and lose power?" That fear shapes how she communicates desire. She doesn't always say what she wants, she signals it. Because for her, vulnerability is risk, and risk without certainty feels like danger. When a woman begins to miss you, her instinct isn't to reach out, it's to observe. She waits, watches, hints. She'll do everything around saying it just to see if you're emotionally aware enough to notice. She wants connection, but she doesn't want to be the first to lose control. That's why she moves through symbols instead of sentences. This isn't manipulation, it's emotional intelligence expressed differently. While men value clarity, women value feeling. They don't just want to be understood logically, they want to be felt emotionally. That's why her communication often sounds contradictory, because it's not about logic, it's about energy. You'll notice it in the little things. She'll send a random emoji after days of silence. She'll mention a memory out of nowhere. She'll use humor to soften her approach. She'll pretend it's casual, but the intention is not. It's her heart testing the waters of safety. Women use subtlety as a shield. It allows them to express interest while keeping pride intact. The feminine craves reassurance, but she fears exposure. That's why she needs to feel your calm before she speaks her truth. If she senses anxiety, need, or pressure, she retreats again, because now she doesn't feel safe, she feels cornered. This is where the masculine must lead, not with force, but with emotional command. A man grounded in stoicism doesn't demand directness, He listens to patterns. He sees her hints, but he doesn't rush to validate them. He lets time and consistency do the talking. His awareness becomes the safe space she didn't know she was searching for. That's when her communication changes. Once she senses emotional safety, her signals become clearer. Her tone softens. Her pride lowers. She begins to open. Not because you chased, but because you held space. Most men never reach this point because they're too busy trying to decode her like a puzzle. But women aren't puzzles. They're mirrors reflecting the energy you bring. If you're reactive, they show you confusion. If you're grounded, they show you truth. So when she sends those subtle, confusing signals, don't respond with frustration. Respond with stillness. Because behind every signal is the same question. Can I trust him with my heart? And your calmness is the only answer that ever matters. Section number 6. The masculine response. How to read her signals without losing your frame. Every man is tested the moment a woman starts sending mixed signals. Not because she wants to confuse him, but because she wants to feel what kind of man he truly is. Will he panic? Will he chase? Will he fold under emotional pressure? Or will he stand grounded, calm, aware, but unshaken? This is the essence of masculine power. Perception without reaction. To read her signals without losing your frame, you must master emotional neutrality. That means you see everything, but you only act on what deserves your energy. You don't get hooked by every breadcrumb or provoked by every silence. You remain steady, the emotional anchor in a world of noise. When she creates tension, you don't flinch. When she pulls away, you don't chase. When she posts something cryptic, you don't overanalyze. You read it, register it, and let it pass. Because you understand that your response defines the dynamic. Women are intuitive. They can feel your emotional temperature even when you say nothing. If she senses desperation beneath your calm tone, she'll test harder. If she feels indifference disguised as pride, she'll withdraw. But when she senses genuine emotional discipline, when your peace isn't dependent on her actions, something shifts inside her. She feels safe and drawn at the same time. That's the paradox of masculine energy. Your detachment doesn't push her away, it pulls her in. Because true detachment isn't coldness, it's confidence. It says, I want you, but I don't need you. I can enjoy your presence, but I can survive your absence. And that level of control changes everything. The disciplined man reads signals like patterns in water. He doesn't fight the current, he observes its direction. If she's engaging again, he matches her tone, not her emotion. If she's distant, he gives space without resentment. If she's watching silently, he lets her curiosity grow. Every move he makes comes from clarity, not craving. When you operate from that state, you flip the dynamic quietly. She stops being the one evaluating your energy. Now she's responding to yours. Her tension, her curiosity, her silence. All of it begins revolving around your calm. That's when you realize she was never testing your words. She was testing your balance. Reading her signals doesn't mean reacting to everyone. It means interpreting them through awareness and choosing peace over impulse. The man who can do that doesn't lose control. He defines it. Because the most attractive man in any room is the one who feels everything, yet remains unmoved. Section number 7. The final signal. When she quietly submits to your energy, there's a moment, subtle, unspoken, when the entire dynamic shifts. She stops testing. She stops posting. She stops pretending she doesn't care. The games, the distance, the silence, they all fade into stillness. That's the moment she feels your energy outweigh hers, and in that silence, She finally surrenders. Not to you as a man, but to the balance you've maintained. This is the final signal most men never recognize because it's not dramatic. It's quiet, peaceful, almost invisible. But if you've mastered your emotions, you'll sense it immediately. Her tone softens. Her words slow down. The tension in her messages disappears. She no longer needs to prove anything because she's subconsciously accepted your emotional leadership. That's not control, that's influence. And influence doesn't demand respect, it inspires it. Women don't submit to men through force or fear. They surrender through trust. And trust is born when she realizes your emotions are no longer tied to hers. She feels your detachment not as rejection, but as safety. Because you're not reacting from impulse, you're moving from intention. You no longer try to win her back. You simply exist in your truth. And that truth pulls her in without effort. When a woman senses that kind of grounded masculinity, she becomes lighter. Her tone changes from defensive to open. Her ego softens. Her pride dissolves. You'll notice it not through grand gestures, but through small shifts. The way she listens, the way she texts differently, the way she starts following your rhythm instead of resisting it. That's not submission in the old sense of the word. It's alignment. Her energy adjusts to yours. And here's the irony. The moment she finally gives in is usually when you no longer need her to. You're detached. You're peaceful. You've already made peace with the outcome, whether she returns or not. That neutrality is the magnetism she was drawn to all along. This final signal isn't about dominance, it's about balance. She stops competing for control because she senses there's nothing left to control. Your calmness has dissolved her resistance. You're no longer reacting to her world. She's now reacting to yours. That's when her messages start to carry warmth again. When her eyes search for yours a little longer. When her presence feels softer, more genuine, more feminine. And in that silence between you, something powerful happens. Respect returns. That's the moment every Stoic man must understand. She doesn't surrender to words, effort, or pressure. She surrenders to peace. And when your peace becomes louder than her pride, she follows it. At the end of everything, attraction isn't about what she says. It's about what she feels when you're silent. Because silence reveals everything. Her insecurity, her curiosity, her desire, her regret. The man who learns to read energy instead of words becomes untouchable. He's no longer moved by what people say. He's moved by what their energy reveals. You see, women speak two languages, words and emotion. One comes from the mind, the other from the soul. The average man listens to the first and gets confused. The wise man listens to the second and becomes unforgettable. When you reach that level of awareness, you no longer chase clarity, you create it. You stop begging for explanations because patterns tell you more than apologies ever could. You stop demanding love because respect already speaks louder. You start seeing her behavior as a mirror of her inner state, not a reflection of your worth. That's when everything changes. You stop reacting. You start observing. You stop forcing. You start flowing. You stop proving your value because you finally realize that your presence is the value. When you live in that space, your calm becomes your charisma. You don't need to convince her of anything. Your energy speaks for you. You're no longer a participant in her emotional storms. You're the eye of it, the still center she can't shake, the steady frequency that reminds her what stability feels like. And that feeling, safety, certainty, peace, is what she was chasing all along. Men lose power when they chase attention. They regain it when they master awareness.